Today's episode is a special episode of Wine with Bill. It's called Second Shelf Reds, and our guest is Ken Toren, someone who's just like you and me, the average Joe consumer, but he's the most important person in the wine world because that's who all the winemakers, wine owners, and all the pundits are pointing all of their expert knowledge to. We'll find out what works for him. This show's going to be fun. Wine with Bill starts now. Welcome to Wine with Bill, and I'm Bill. This is a special edition show of Wine with Bill with a very special guest. His name is Ken Toren. He's not a winemaker. He's not a owner of a winery. He's not a sommelier. He's not a wine judge. But he's the most important person in the entire wine world because he's a consumer, the ultimate arbiter of what wine is being bought or not bought, not only here in Santa Clara Valley, but in the world. Ken Toren, welcome to the show.
Wow, the pressure's on.
The pressure is not on. Well, it's been a warm day, but the show we've entitled, with the great name from it, Second Shelf Reds. What's the backstory on the name of the show?
That's funny. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me today. This is really terrific. I listen to your show. I watch your show. I've learned so much, even though I can't say that I know that much about wine, but it's really been a good education and great shows.
Thank you.
So, my wine experience is that I'm, like you said, all the things that you said are very true. And I'm not a winemaker. I don't own a wine. I don't really know that much about wine. In fact, I'm from Philadelphia originally, and coming out to California, I think the law says you have to learn about wine, and you have to appreciate wine, and you have to go to wineries and learn about wine. So I did that when I first moved out here, and ever since then acquired a taste for it. I didn't right away, but over time I did. And I do like the reds, as you'll see as we move on here. I don't really feel the need to have to spend a lot of money on wine because I don't know really a great wine versus an okay wine versus a less expensive wine. And so I started with less expensive wines because, like you said, that's just a common thing. I can go in, I can test them out. Some I like, some I don't like. But I do have an appreciation for good wine. I will tell you, at the top end, I like Caymus, I like Turley. My favorite is Joseph Phelps, which is really not super expensive wine, but it's really good wine. But I've acquired a taste and a budget for less expensive wines, and I have a few that are really good. And the truth is, you don't have to spend a lot of money on good, decent or good wine.
I think what you haven't used the word yet, but it sounds apparent in what you're saying. You embrace value in wine, especially as it relates to quality. And second shelf is a term that's used in wine stores, in bars. It signifies what in your mind?
Less expensive.
Okay. but
not necessarily bad.
But not garbage.
Less expensive. So when I go into the store and I go into the wine area, and I like obviously the cabs, and I do like Pinot, and I do like Merlot and Zinfandels, but mostly cabs. I go in and I actually look at all the shelves, because sometimes the fifth shelf or fourth shelf, however many shelves there are, do have great values, because if a wine is on sale, honestly, anymore, everything's expensive, but expensive wines go on sale, and then it kind of trickles down. The fifth shelf wines go on sale, and the fourths go on sale, and the thirds, etc. So sometimes you can actually pick out a decent wine for not a whole lot of money. But I tend to go, my head kind of goes down. Because
have you sustained any neck injury because of the downward gaze?
That's kind of my comfort level is in that zone. But truly, while I'm not an expert, I think I have a good sense of inexpensive wines that are good and consistently good, and also the stores, that some of the stores which I can talk to do have some really fantastic values.
Well, now you've indicated kind of sort of a preference or a major like for Cabernet.
Cabernet.
And so what are the characteristics of the Cabernet bottles, wines, whatever that you really embrace? Or there are some perhaps that you don't like as much as others, whether it's a fruit level or a tannin level or what? What's your perfect batch?
I look for wines that last, because I'll open up a bottle of wine on a Friday evening, and very often I won't even finish it by Sunday, and so I'll leave it in the refrigerator, or I'll leave it in a place where it's cool and cool and dark, and then I'll go back to it sometimes a week later. And one of the things that is important to me is that it lasts, because I have done that with other wines and they don't last, and so by the next week they're not good. Some of these wines, and some of the wines that I'm going to show you today, do last longer. So for me, being that I don't have anybody at home with which I drink, on a normal basis, I look for that too. I also look for the finish. That once you drink wine, that it lingers. And because sometimes wine is kind of, you drink really really inexpensive wine, like a networking thing or whatever, and it just is flat, and you just don't. It just is not good. Even kind of a sour taste sometimes. But the wines that I've picked out today, and some of the others that I look at, do last.
Well, and
finish.
Longevity, lasting, are all characteristics of Cabernet, which is one of the heavier bodied wines, etc. So you've nailed it there. To paraphrase Mark Twain, it sounds like you never met a Cabernet you didn't like. Or not.
Pretty much. The really, like, on occasion I'll go really low end, and try a really inexpensive bottle, and sometimes that'll be recommended. It's like you read something and you go, well, you don't really have to spend a lot of money. You could spend $6, $7 for a bottle of wine, and it's really not that bad. It's usually $10, but I've had some of those, and frankly, some of them are just truly not good. So on occasion, I'll have one that I don't like, and I just, like everybody else, I just don't buy it anymore. The beauty of going into any store is that when you look at a wine that you haven't heard or you're not familiar with, you just take out your phone, you look it up, you look at reviews. There's all these websites that have reviews instantaneously. And I read the reviews. I take my time. And you believe what you believe, right? Not everything gets fives. Some gets fours, and some people give 4-star, 5-star wine 2 stars because they've had a bad bottle or they don't like it. So you have to take it for what it's worth. But I do a fair amount of research, and when I hear about a wine, or I go to a place and drink a bottle of wine that I haven't been familiar with, I come back, I look at it online, and then I figure out where I can potentially buy it.
There's been a lot of discussion in the industry of the expectations of a buyer, a consumer, and what they can do to make everything more simple, quite frankly, and to specifically say in very good everyday layman terms what they can do to induce you to buy the bottle of wine, and not these flowery terms. So when you go into a store, and it's kind of happening the last 10 or 15 years, not every bottle, but there's a lot of descriptions. Some of them are handwritten, some of them are typed, some of them are put out by the producer, the winery,
and the labels.
And exactly. Does that catch your attention, or what?
Labels, obviously branding does, but I'm pretty traditional, so I know the 5 to 10 types of wines that the brands that I like. And I always end up gravitating towards that. Occasionally, when I go in and see something that catches my eye, I'll look it up. I'll look at reviews. I will say, I have a couple of tips here which we can get into. But one of the things is at particularly at Costco, sometimes at Safeway, you can ask questions of people, especially Costco.
To the staff.
To the staff, right. And I know that they're pushing certain wines that are on sale or that they have a special deal going. And they always try to bring you over to that little table that's there with the special wines that they have on sale, which aren't necessarily inexpensive wines. But I have gone to them and said, hey, I'm ready to try something new and different, and they'll have 3 or 4 that they will suggest. So I think, one of the tips that I would pass on is, no one knows everything about wine. And you shouldn't be afraid to ask dumb questions if you're not a wine person, right? Because that's the way you learn, and that's the way you can appreciate, some options.
Give us some of your other tips.
Okay, good. Expensive doesn't necessarily mean that it's that you won't enjoy it. So I've learned that expensive wine is fantastic. Some of the wines that I mentioned, Silver Oak is another one that I love, and I've had good wine, but that just because it's pricier doesn't mean it's better. I am, and your viewers will be the best judge of quality, right? Because like you said, if you like that wine, that's the wine that you choose, whether it's expensive or inexpensive. You're the best judge of that. And I find that most wines, with exception of a few that are really low shelf, not even on a shelf, most wines are good. Some are great, some are decent, but most wines are good, especially after you drink a few glasses.
But part of that, and I agree with you completely, and I think part of that is, especially here in the Bay Area in California, let alone Silicon Valley, we are blessed with some of the greatest wine, not just wine varietals, but wineries in the world. They're world class. So our everyday stuff, and nothing against other states or other countries, but we're really in a sweet spot here.
Yeah, and experimentation is fun. Go out of your comfort zone. I stuck with cabs. I will say that I don't like Chardonnays. I do like Pinot Grigio. That's one of the whites that I do like. I'll talk a little bit about Champagne in a sec. But I have grown a fondness for some Zinfandels and some Merlots, which, when I first tried to do Zinfandels or Merlots, I really couldn't tell the taste difference that much. So they kind of all blended together. But over time, I when you have a good Zin or a good Merlot as opposed to a really good Cab, you see the difference. I also like Chiantis too, which again, I couldn't tell the difference initially, but over time you're able to tell the difference. And again, I also said advice is very important. You should ask, and the bottom line is you never know until you try it. You buy it, you try it, you like it, you don't, but that's how you know.
When you go out to dinner with friends, family, whatever, I know I am a big fan of wines by the glass, and there'll be some suggestions perhaps, or you'll get it on your own, and that's a great way. You don't have to buy a whole bottle.
It is.
But you can also say, wow, I just discovered a great wine, and I never thought I'd like Merlot or Chianti, and it just registers with you. Yeah,
I've done that. But I have a lot of wine at home, and so I would say not during COVID, but the last year or so when we've been starting to go out to dinner, I've actually brought my own wine because I think if I'm going to have a great dinner in one of our super Los Gatos restaurants here, I'm going to have a wine that I like, that I trust, that I know, as opposed to something that if I buy, which is way overpriced, as we all know in restaurants, and I don't like it, then what have I done? So So I've been doing that more often these days.
Good practice. Well, we're going to take a break here, but when we come back, we're going to talk some more with Ken, having a great conversation with him, and we're going to find out if any more tips, his other personal experiences, and we're going to have him talk about some bottles here that he brought that would really represent the Second Shelf Reds well. And I've got a couple here that I can contribute to the conversation as well. We'll be right back.
Thank you to the Los Gatos Community Foundation for their continued support of KCAT Public Media. Because of groups like the Los Gatos Community Foundation, KCAT has been able to inspire, educate, entertain, and inform our community through the magic of television and digital media for over 38 years. Thank you.
All right, we're back, and let's talk about a non-second shelf red or red wine period. We talked off camera. You do sample champagne every once in a while?
I love champagne. You know, bubbles are great. So because they pair well. Now I remember watching a program, a Wine with Bill program, and you had somebody on, and I don't remember, maybe, where was it from?
It was, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it was our holiday wine pairings, and it was Ryan Smith, one of the owners, and we were talking about various holidays, whether it be Hanukkah, whether it be Christmas, whether it be New Year's,
right.
and he also talked about what's the word? Some surprise perfect pairings, and champagne was one. And do you recall what it went with?
I don't remember, but all I know is that's his go-to.
It was fried chicken.
Ah, right. That's right.
Fried
that's
chicken,
right. That's right.
as well as other holiday foods. But you've nailed it. And describe for me the sensation, and it's different for everybody, but it's also very similar, that you get when you're eating some type of foods, and that champagne is what you're washing it down with.
I usually don't think of it, champagne, like he said, it's usually a celebratory thing, right? It's just like, it's almost like, we're going to pop open a bottle of champagne. Well, but what's the occasion, Well, it's Thursday, that doesn't seem to be very special. But life is short, and I don't do it as often as I should, I like mimosas. I love mimosas. I think they're, especially in breakfast time. I love that. I love Bloody Marys too, but that's another show. But it does pair well with everything. Because I've had champagne with, at meals with different types of food. And anything sparkling from California is really good. But I guess I have champagne at home. I do champagne similarly to how I do wine, which is second shelf. But I've also had some really good champagnes, and I will say, as opposed to red wines, higher level champagne is much better than less expensive champagne.
Dramatic difference.
That I even know.
Okay, good. Well, let's focus on perhaps some of the stores or other places where you've gotten these second shelf reds, and I can talk about mine as well. Sure. So what are some of your favorite shopping zones to get some of these good value wines?
Yeah, so
reds?
There's, I would say, basically 3 or 4 places that I've gone to. Costco is one. Costco has obviously just an amazing selection of wine. And they have, depending upon the store, they have different sections where they have more expensive wine, and then they have a section where they have very, very inexpensive wines. So you have to kind of look at both. And they have amazing sales because they get such volume of wines. And they do usually have somebody there who's selling a certain wine on sale, representing a certain vineyard or a certain brand. And so they usually have somebody to talk to and ask for their recommendation. And you have to take it with a grain of salt because they're promoting the wine that they're promoting, but you want them to give you a unbiased opinion, and they typically typically get there. CVS, surprisingly,
Is that a pharmacy?
it is as in the pharmacy, has surprisingly a very good selection of wine, and decent prices, and a lot of sales. And so I do, when I go to the local Pete's here for coffee, and sometimes I run over to the CVS to see if something's on sale. In fact, I got a few today that were on sale, and they have some good wines, some really good wines, top shelf. But if you look at their middle shelves would sometimes be the lower shelves in some other places. So you have to really look very carefully on all of their shelves. I don't know the other selections of wines because I only kind of stay in the cab world. But I'm surprisingly they have a good selection of wines.
Interesting.
That's
Very
a go-to place for me.
Wow.
Target has a fair amount of decent wines. They have more expensive wines on sale than most other places I've gone. So you can get pretty expensive wines for on sale. So whenever I don't go to Target that often, but when I do go, I look for the expensive wines that are on sale. The middle level wine and the wines and the second shelf wines are pretty typical in price. Safeway has a great selection of wine too. Prices vary. Like everything else, the inexpensive wines are now the more expensive wines, and the more expensive wines are really expensive. God, lately I've been like everything else, shopping everywhere else. Everything is $5 more, $6 more, $10 more in some cases. And some of the wines that you have to look for a little bit more seriously because they don't have the supply that they used to have, or they have less of them.
That is a factor, yes.
I went into Trader Joe's looking for a certain kind of wine not too long ago, and then they didn't have it, and then I happened to go back 2 days later to see if they had that wine, and they still didn't have it. So the supply chain does impact, is impacting, obviously everything in the world, but certainly the wine business as well.
Interesting. Well, let's start off. You pick the order here, but let's talk about some of these wines, where you got them, the price, and why you bought it.
I'll go, and some of these wines I know a little bit more than the others. This is called Corvella, and the reason why I chose this one is because my daughter loves this wine. I've had it before. This is Trader Joe's. It's in that $10-ish world. It's a good wine. It's a deep flavor wine. So it's one of those ones that lasts a long time. It's very memorable. They don't always have it, so I don't know if there's seasonal, if it's a seasonal thing or whatever. But so you have to kind of keep your eye out for it. But it's got a rich feel. It's got a rich feel to it. It's a very good wine. I like the shape of the bottle. It's kind of different than most of the cab bottles.
It is.
Corvella. It's very good, and I that looks like Ava, so I have that. I got that wine.
They've hit your comfort zone.
They got me. This is one of the best inexpensive wines, under $10, that you can get out there. Columbia Crest Grand Estates
from Washington
State. Excellent taste. It lasts a long time. Kind of a little bit of a lighter taste to it, but every glass you have is meaningful with this wine, and for the price, it's off the charts. I've seen them for $8, even $7 when it's on sale. This is one of the best wines under $10 out there, and you can get this everywhere. I don't remember exactly where I got this, but all the places that I mentioned
in distribution. Yeah.
So it's
a big volume of cases per year.
Columbia Crest, really good.
Really good. Keep us going here.
Then a couple years ago, I don't know what made me get this, but it is bourbon barrel aged, and I was like, what does that mean? I don't even know what that means, but it kind of struck me as interesting, and I thought, so I looked it up, and I understood a little bit about how maybe you know a little bit more about this than I do, and I started drinking it. Also, the reason why I like this wine, it lasts really a long time. So for me, I don't get to finish a wine bottle over a weekend. I want it for the next weekend. This is the one that lasts the longest. Just I don't know I don't know. Maybe you know more about the bourbon barrel aged. If that does anything to it, I don't really even know. Or is it a marketing thing that I bought?
Combination. It does have valid things
that
help out.
Yeah.
But,
also a $10, $12 wine ish, and you can get it anywhere. It's very, very
well, these are all so far great values, and you're extolling the virtues of their quality.
Yeah. Boggle, Costco has these very often. There's a cab. There's something called a red blend that I've had. I think it's got a black label to it. Good solid wine, not the best in the world. I've had some good bottles, bad bottles, but most of them are decent. So if it's something on sale or something that strikes me, like today, it was on sale, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try Boggle again. So I would say about 75% of the time, it's really good wine and reasonably priced.
Good.
Now butter. So a couple years back, Jam Cellars came out. So Jam came out, and what I like about it is the twist top. And I was a little reluctant with the twist top when I first got the Jam, but I either had it somewhere or I don't remember exactly where. But I loved it. This is the one with the red label. And so I would buy Jam, and then and Jam is probably in the $15 range, $14-15 range. I've seen it go up even higher than that. And I haven't had Jam in a long time, but I used to drink quite a bit of it. So they have Jam, butter Chardonnay, butter with Chardonnay, and then toast, which is their champagne. It's really cool, and I just love the look and feel of it. I was at a store, I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, and I thought, I saw this butter, but it's a butter cab. And I thought, butter is their Chardonnay, So, and why would they go to
another direction?
Another direction. And so this is a different kind of cab, and I don't know how different it is than Jam, but it got an excellent write-up. I haven't had it yet, so this is just a promo.
Just two twists away.
Two twists away, and I like the ease of that. So if you like Jam, I'm assuming since I like Jam, I'm going to like the butter. So I'm anxious to try it, but I thought I would bring it today.
Good.
My most favorite one of all, and I usually buy these. For me, I buy 2 and 3 at a time. Saint Chateau, Michel. The best of the best of everything.
Another Washington State wine.
Right. The price, the taste, the long lasting. I've never had a bad bottle, ever. Reasonably priced. I've seen it, 10. It's 10 to 12, 10 to 14 ish in that ballpark. Because of course everything's going up a couple bucks here and there. But without question, and again, interestingly, the Columbia Valley, and then you've got the Columbia Crest. So it's interesting although I think California wines are terrific. Two of the wines that I've showed today are from Washington, but this wine you can never go wrong with it, ever. So my go-to, most favorite one of all. And I must mention, I have a few others just to mention. I love Hess Select. Hess. I like Decoy quite a bit. These are $15 to $20 bottles.
That's
so when I get really crazy and I'm going to spend more money and I want to go bump up a level, these are the ones I go to. St. Francis is good. Franciscan is also very good too.
Well, thank you. Well, my entries in the, I won't say competition, but my phase is, we both know this, Vasco Urbano. This is a GSM, a Grenache Syrah, a Mourvèdre from the Central Coast, although it's made in a winery in Livermore, and it's a wine that's only sold at Costco. They have an exclusive contract. Twist top. If you want something to go with barbecue, and it's the season, we're in the summer, this is your go-to wine, and it's mine as well for years. And I, as I said, Costco's the only place you can get it. The Roviago, little guy with the bicycle on the top, is from Italy. It's a light to medium-bodied wine. This wine will go with anything, whether it be charcuterie, whether it be pizza, burgers, pasta, white or red, animal fat. I even had this with a Niqua salad, and it was excellent. $15, $16 for the Urbano, Vasco Urbano. So, and I think that we've gotten a feel here, Ken, that 10, 15, definitely value, maybe even 20, but between inflation and other factors, everything's going up.
Yeah.
So,
and
anyway.
you know, I'm glad I told you earlier before the show started, I was actually going to bring the Vasco because I had the Vasco at your house, and I thought it was terrific. And every time I go to Costco and it's there, I get it. But I'm glad you did because it's excellent.
Good. Well, Ken Toren, thank you for being on the show.
Sure.
A great conversation. And once again, all you people that are viewing and listening, this is a consumer. This is what all the wineries, all the winemakers, all the pundits, they're trying to get to. And it's not that easy. So there you are. Great show. Good to have you on, Ken.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
That's it.